There are predators who hunt and consume the souls that drift along the river of souls in the boneyard. Yes, that's a lot of souls. Night hags, astrodemons, devourers, but there is one who hunts these predators. One who revels in the satisfaction of consuming that which has consumed. The one whose sigil is a skull with moss stuffed into its jaws, known by many as the Empty Death. Welcome to the Nhimbaloth video here on Cardinal Adventures. Nhimbaloth is a terrifying deity for many reasons. So terrifying that I didn't feel comfortable taking on this deity alone. Allow me to introduce my other party member to help conquer this video. Trevor Payne, Game Master for Roll for Intent. Tell us a little bit about yourself, Trevor, and Roll for Intent, the podcast.
Hey, Liam, thanks for having me on. I appreciate it.
Of course.
Well, I run a Abomination Vaults podcast, a lot like yours. We've been doing it for, as of time of recording, we've recorded 85 episodes now. I think we have 81 released. Really focusing on telling our own story wrapped around the Abomination Vault storyline because it's such a nice, broad story that doesn't have a lot of specifics to get bogged down in, so you can use it to pick and choose to tell your own character stories. I've only been GMing and really playing TTRPGs since about 2020, but I really have grown to love the community and the community of creators, community of players. It's really just a good vibe, honestly. I love it.
Awesome. I asked Trevor to join me today because I feel like he has done a fantastic job incorporating the Empty Death as the overarching theme of his Abomination Vault's actual play, like he stated. I would like to discuss what you and I feel are the core elements of the Empty Death without spoiling anything for the players out there, so we can help game masters who want to incorporate Nhimbaloth into their existing campaigns, those who are currently running Abomination Vaults, and players who are looking to become even more invested in the Abomination Vault setting. Does that sound good to you, Trevor?
Absolutely.
All right. Well, and again, this does not incorporate all elements of theme. These are just ones we have time to get into without this video running on and on and on and on, because we could talk about Nhimbaloth for hours, I think. Would you agree, Trevor?
Oh, absolutely. I have a very clear picture of what this deity means to me, and it really is at the heart of a lot of the atmosphere that I try to set in our show and for our players.
All right. So the first element we'll get into is the domains. So the domains, for those that aren't aware, for Nhimbaloth are decay, nature, undeath, and void. And the alternate domains are abominations, which is specifically for the Abomination Vault's adventure path, and delirium. So I guess you can go first. What do those? What do those mean to you as a GM whenever you read those?
So really, to me, Nhimbaloth absolutely personifies entropy, decay, and undeath, and the void, the essence of nothingness. Nature with its endless cycle of life and death, feeding those energies of despair and fear and pain into Nhimbaloth. Beyond that, abominations, like you said, it's specifically for Abomination Vaults, right? Creatures like a will-o'-the-wisp, or creatures like a gibbering mouther, things that tend to defy comprehension, really find themselves at home, basking in the emptiness of Nhimbaloth.
All right. On my end, I definitely, in terms of undeath, one thing I would advise for game masters out there is this is not typical undeath. This is not Pallid Princess Urgathoa undeath. This is a totally different, yes, undead as in ghosts. There's definitely a heavy ghost theme around Nhimbaloth, but this is not, like your typical zombies and vampires, your typical, whether they're mindless or intelligent undead. This is predominantly ghosts and more spiritual things.
Desperate, hungry, malevolent, not really basking in their undeath, more like defined by it and clinging to the fear that it influences upon others.
In terms of temples and shrines, I'll go ahead and kick this one off. One thing that I think is very interesting about Nhimbaloth's temple and shrines is that, generally speaking, they don't really have one. A lot of her followers are those who are the truly desperate and looking for a means to either cheat death or see death from a new perspective. You want to speak on that?
Yeah, we have an NPC that we ended up putting in our campaign that, as a youth, as a rebellious youth with nowhere to turn, ended up falling in with Nhimbaloth cultists. It's really the essence of nihilism. There's nothing that matters. Nothing you do matters. All there is pain. All there is suffering. Really, people that have nowhere else to go will seek Nhimbaloth just to feel like they belong to something greater than themselves, because what's greater than the nothingness that will consume the universe when it's all said and done?
Mm-hmm. Yes, nihilist to the nth extent. But of course, there is one type of temple or shrine that can be associated with Nhimbaloth, or if there is a temple to be built for Nhimbaloth, it is often a lighthouse, which is oh so fitting for the Abomination vaults. Because I wouldn't say it's really a spoiler, because it's in the player's guide. There is a creepy keep called the Gauntlet Keep that has a lighthouse. So again, there's this literal overarching theme of Nhimbaloth present in the Abomination vaults.
I think that really feeds into the idea that their worshippers are desperate and seeking some sort of safe harbor. So they find something. These lighthouses are not in a cove. These lighthouses are not on the coast. These lighthouses are deep in marshes or in swamps, places they're not meant to guide ships. But really, they're meant to guide lost souls closer to something to consume them.
That's right. Creatures. I'll let you kick this off, because you've in your podcast, which I have listened all the way through and am currently a part of. Let's go. Only as a cameo guest, but the creatures that can be thrown in if you want to add more. You want to go ahead and talk about that?
Well, we got your typical will-o'-the-wisps, which those are present very early on. I don't think it's a spoiler to say that.
No.
They show up very, very early. If you're just hanging out outside, you're going to find will-o'-the-wisps. And, fantasy setting, baleful bog, stinky marsh, you're probably going to have ghost lights, so will-o'-the-wisp. Marsh giants seem to be attracted to her, probably because marshes are considered a place of power. And marsh giants are territorial and malevolent and nihilistic in the setting. And beyond that, ghosts. You've already mentioned ghosts, but anytime that you have some sort of restless spirit, not really a spirit that has unfinished business, but very often a spirit that was taken away and is angry about it. This isn't the unrequited lover. This isn't somebody that's waiting for their long-lost friend to return. This is somebody that died out of vengeance or out of some senseless act, and they loathe the living because of it.
Like one of my favorites that you added in, I wouldn't say it's a spoiler because nothing has come of it yet. The bog mummy. I loved the introduction of the bog mummy, and that really instilled fear into the group and made them far more cautious when going back and forth between Otari and the Gauntlet.
To me, that's one of those things that I can't believe wasn't actually written into the adventure, because to me, a bog mummy, if you think about what a bog mummy is in real life, in our world, bog mummies are not intentional. Bog mummies are usually people that were murdered and their bodies were stashed somewhere. Bog mummies are the direct result of an evil act in an evil place. And I think they are perfect as something that portends the presence of Nhimbaloth's influence.
And the last point we'll hit on here is, and this is just a quote to kind of encompass what Nhimbaloth meant to James Jacobs, the one who wrote Nhimbaloth into the setting of Pathfinder, who was highly and very much influenced by H.P. Lovecraft, who makes a lot of horrific fiction. Long dream the dead, yet even death can die. So I want to know what your take is on the meaning, or what that aphorism means to you.
The cultists of Nhimbaloth believe that Nhimbaloth and Pharasma are in an endless struggle with one another. They are at odds with each other. Her clerics, those of Pharasma, fear and respect those of Nhimbaloth. And the holy texts of Nhimbaloth state that Pharasma bears scars from a battle with Nhimbaloth on her planet. She doesn't really have a plane. She has a planet called Voidbracken that drifts endlessly through the space beyond the stars. Nhimbaloth will outlast Pharasma, is the intent here. I feel like the outer gods, their ideals are unknowable. Specifically, Nhimbaloth doesn't care about her followers. She cares about consuming. She does not care about anything other than having more. And when everything is dead, and the personification of death is all that remains, a personification of emptiness, when every soul is consumed, that which is already dead will never truly die.
I like it because to me it's very interesting, because I'm a huge fan of liches in medieval fantasy. It's funny because before I knew Nhimbaloth, one of the liches I had in my, because when I ran my first campaign, it was in it was technically homebrew, but it was homebrew in Galarian because there was no adventure paths yet. It was all playtest material for 2nd edition. And the lich I had created, it was actually one of the players who wanted to become a lich because he knew he couldn't play the entire campaign with us. So he's like, hey, is it okay if I make an evil character that eventually turns on the party? I was like, absolutely, let's ride around that, sure. And his lichdom was actually centered around bringing eternal rest to all of Galarian, because he wanted there to be this what he called like eternal peace. It's funny because had I known about Nhimbaloth, I would have actually probably just made him a lich of Nhimbaloth, like, an oddball. But yeah, if only I knew then what I know now.
I feel like those of the listeners who have ever read through or played through the very first Paizo adventure path, Rise of the Rune Lords, the arc of the Foxglove family is very, very well primed to be having Vorel Foxglove as a scion of Nhimbaloth in his quest for lichdom. It is perfect.
Yep.
The setting, the haunts, the outcome of his attempted creation of the phylactery is all perfectly themed, where you could just slot Nhimbaloth in there as a central portion of that entire book. Honestly, it's
and even the aftermath of the faceless stalkers in Magnamar.
Absolutely. Faceless stalkers are another creature that very easily would be something that reveres Nhimbaloth if they've been otherwise disconnected from their Agalothu, right? Because they live in swamps. They are fairly malevolent, nihilistic. They're a fantastic addition as well to a cult of Nhimbaloth.
All right. Well, like I said, that's going to conclude it. But I want to say thank you, Trevor, for joining me today and taking on the horror that is Nhimbaloth.
Thank you so very much for having me. I absolutely love this deity.
We hope this video helps anybody out there who is looking for inspiration around Nhimbaloth, or just a different perspective on the deity herself. Be sure to check out Trevor's podcast, Roll for Intent, my podcasts as well, if you can't get enough of his Abomination Vault's take on Nhimbaloth. And if you liked it, chat with me in the comments below, or in my Discord, or in Trevor's Discord, Roll for Intent. I'll link that one below as well. And I will see you all in the next video. Take it easy.
if Nhimbaloth, sorry, went Christopher Walken there for a second.